Our presenter today is the Reverend Shoken Winecoff. He's an ordained Buddhist monk in the Soto Zen tradition. Reverend Winecoff studied at a Zen monastery in Japan for 3 years. He was ordained by the Reverend Dainin Katagiri, founder of the Minnesota Zen Meditation Center. Reverend Winecoff serves as abbot of Ryumonji Zen Monastery in northeastern Iowa near Decorah. He has been a Soto Zen monk for over 40 years. Please welcome the Reverend Shoken Winecoff. Turn yourself on? Yeah.
Lots of wires. We're getting there. Okay, how are we doing, Heather? Okay, thank you. Well, hello. This is really an honor for me to come and be with you all, and especially to talk about the subject that you picked here. It's like, God. That's not an exclamation. That's my subject. Yeah, it's this is a subject that's that's part of all of our lives at some level. I can just just to share my own perceptions there and my own journey a little bit. Yeah, I was raised Catholic. I was in a German Catholic parish in South St. Louis. I did good in school, and they said, you could go to the seminary if you like, So I went to seminary, and I studied Latin in our parish bowling alley while I was setting pins. It just kept unfolding. And after 12 years of seminary, high school, college, postgraduate theology, I was ordained a Catholic priest. And it was really, I was embodying all of my sort of background and things I was taught to believe, from the get-go, to say our night prayers, to go to communion when you had the age of reason. And this was my relationship with God, okay? So our belief systems about God, our thoughts about God are really formulated with a lot of factors kind of come into how we think about God and how we live our lives. It's not just an abstract concept, what is God, but what's that got to do with how we live our lives? So my own thinking sort of kind of evolved as I went along in the seminary. And toward the last year, there were 2 priests that really made a difference in my life. And they were teaching sort of a kind of a new theology, it was sort of an incarnational theology. Like, where do we find God? And, we're all taught, the little ones, it was so great to see them in the front row, but my first concepts of God was, this powerful, radiant being sitting on a throne, with angels and two gates, and I knew what those two gates were for, So, anyway, but these two priests, it was a catechetical course where it started talking about incarnational theology, which is, where do you find God? Is it up in heaven, wherever heaven is? Or is it, that God, the whole Christian message is God became man, and woman, and, it's in everyday life that you encounter God. What is the commandment, Christian commandment? Whatsoever you do to the least of your brethren, you do to me. And this is your relationship with God. So that was a beginning, and I was ordained, but I was really into where it's at is in secular society. This is where God is. Here is where God is. How we treat each other, the things we prayed for here, and the earth itself. We're all kind of wound together with all of that. Where is God? So my thinking, is that the secular life, and how we handle day-to-day living, is my relationship with God. So I left priesthood primarily because I felt like I wanted to be secular man, that I was sort of kind of in this other realm, with a collar on. And I felt like I had to take the collar off. This was my thinking then, and then in order to really become a secular person. So that transpired, and ran its course. And I was, I married eventually, and I have a son now who's just about 50. It's like up to that point, I was into, being secular man, and that is where my encounter with God is. So what happened there is, how did I get into Buddhism? I never heard the word Buddhism. We never looked at world religions in our seminary, but it's like, so my brother-in-law told me there was a Zen center in Minneapolis, and they had these 40-minute sittings. And at that time, my spouse and I separated. And it was the first time when I felt like things were not going my way. Like the film says, we operate by desire. Our usual way is, if I get what I'm thinking about, and want, I'm happy. If it doesn't turn out for some reason, I'm sad or depressed or mad, right? That's our all common experience. So Buddhism, had this practice of sitting Zazen, it's called. And Zazen is just sitting cross-legged, like the Buddhist statues, and sitting upright, bring yourself to this moment and be alive there. So I did that, this first sitting. First of all, I didn't know I could sit. They were 40-minute sittings, and God, my mind had going like this and all that, but by the end, toward the last 4 or 5 minutes, it's like, finally, I started to settle down and just take a look at myself. Like, hey, this is where it's at. Get with it. That was the issue. I was not getting with it yet. I was still fighting it. I was still depressed from it. I was still whatever. We all go through it, these things about everything, anything, a flat tire. We say, oh no, it's like we're swung by that. So Buddhism, its teaching is, be alive in moment, whatever that brings. It doesn't mean we shouldn't plan things. We shouldn't kind of, try to organize things or buy insurance or, but still things happen. So where are we in the midst of, the earth opening up under you and having a three-year-old son, to do joint custody with? That was where it was at. So could I be alive there? You say, embrace secular life. Well, this is secular life. It's real life. That real life is constantly arising, and it doesn't always fit our desire on things. All right, so now let's get down to God. So in Buddhism, they say that when people ask the Buddha, is there a God or not? The Buddha said, neither God nor no God. It's a tricky answer. So he says, this is recorded, something, I don't know if he said it, but I think he said it. Or something like it. That teaching has come down through human history. But the teaching there is like neither God nor no God. So one way of understanding that is that the Buddha didn't want, he himself never claimed any kind of divinity. People divinized him through different cultures, Thailand and, Tibet, many cultures have divinized the Buddha. People prayed to the Buddha like we prayed, to saints or God, But that idea that neither God nor no God is like trying to come back to, not making divisions. Like then you got believers and non-believers. You are universal fellowship. It's great. You're open to whatever. So, but that neither God nor no God is the Buddha's real interest. This is sort of a Buddhist take, is we are all interwoven, interconnected. So how can we be one? How can we be with each other? If I start saying there is a God or there isn't, then you got the is, on one side of the aisle, and that's not, there is no God on the other side of the aisle, and we're at it. We're on that plane, So the Buddha takes a step back and says, neither God nor no God. Well, where do you go with that? It's so that's kind of one answer, that the Buddha didn't want to. What is the Buddhist perspective of God? Maybe you could say no perspective, neither God nor no God. But there's another explanation of that. And if I could use the word mountain instead of God, there is a Buddhist saying that says, mountain is mountain. So if you go out in Colorado, outside of Boulder, walk up, you're in the mountains. Mountain is mountain. But the other part of that saying is, mountain is also not mountain. What the heck do they mean by that? So this is one of these Buddhist sayings, but let's look at it. Mountain is mountain. It's there. You climb it. It's beautiful. You can, I was in Boulder for a while, but just briefly visiting. Looking down, it's beautiful. Mountain is mountain. What do you mean? Mountain is not mountain. Mountain is not mountain because what is mountain? Mountain is volcanic, historical eruption from who knows when. Mountain is the foliage on it, the animals on it, that all mountain is all of time, you could say, from beginningless past. Where, when, was Earth spun off of wherever. So mountain is mountain, there it is, but mountain is all of life and creation, you could say. So this happens to be with you and me. Who are you and who am I? Well, we can say you are you and I am I. That's right. We need to get that straight, Sometimes we don't. We try to work each other's program. That's not a good deal, But, we are separate, but we are really one. I am one because I had to kind of, where am I with this whole subject the last, couple days? I've been living it in a way. What do I have to say about that? So you are me and I am you. We are touching base this morning. Your life is my life. So that is true of everything. We are all interwoven, interpenetrated. This is Buddhist philosophy. So when you say, Buddha says neither God nor no God. It's another way of saying, there might be God, but what is no God? No God is whatever God is. It's the culmination of infinite. We say infinite in traditional theology, of infinite, interworking, interdynamic being through where? How many, Hummel, I don't know my science, but how many billions of years, we have from light, from, help me, telescopes and things, it's like, anyway, so God, in some sense, I think from a Buddhist perspective is more of a verb than a noun. It's kind of like where's God? God's here. God's in Africa. God's in, Antarctica. It's in a sense, we are one. We are woven together as one. That is God. That is incarnational theology, you could say, from a more theological perspective, I think. So if that's so, this is the conclusion, then, how do you live? So to be one with God means we need to kind of constantly bring ourselves back to be one with what is. So this moment, it's be one with, being together here this morning. You got up, you got dressed, you came here. I got up, I got dressed, I came here. I'm, thinking about all this. So that kind of that oneness there is, it's like, where is our relationship with God? Is be one with what is, because what is all of Godness, you could say. The issue is, can I get with what is? That is Buddhist practice. And that is manifested in this zazen, this sitting, because the instruction for zazen, upright sitting, is get with what is. If you start thinking about stuff, oh, this happened, that happened, yeah, you never hear it. There's a lot happening, in many generations, but it's still, this is where we are, where I am today. Get with this moment. That is our relationship with God, I think. That to be alive in moment that is. So it means opening your eyes, looking at what needs to happen. Take care of your space, your time, whatever, in a practical way. So there's a saying says, if you want to attain suchness, then practice suchness without delay. Like, get with the program, get with where things are right now. Like drive, when you're driving, drive, get with that. When you got cats around, like tune into them. Instead of kicking them and saying, shut up. It's like, anyway, there's, that thing about, we're always trying, our usual way, let's get this, we always go with our desire, what feels good, what we want. We're looking for that. I want ice cream, but I don't want to get fat. Okay, so I ate a little ice cream. So, we're always trying to, that's our human way. It's natural, but to get with where things are, there's repercussions. I got arteries that are clogged, and, it's like, wake up, Shoken, it's like, what you put in is what you get, it's like, so anyway, this Katagiri, he has really, I just want to end with this. He says, if you can get with the river of life, like get with life, that is, get with what is. Let's take care of today's day. If you don't know what to do or where you are, be with that for a minute, like calm down, take a walk, stick your head out the door. If it's raining and you're depressed, take a walk inside your room and you'll notice dust balls. Yesterday I noticed lots of dust balls. Get with what is, Shoken. Like get your dust mop out and, clean. That is my relationship, you could say, with God. So get with your life, get with suchness. And today is the result of yesterday. How I handled yesterday is today. And how I handle today is, it's a product of yesterday and it shapes, the future. And you could say all life or all creation. So that is more like, you could say, spiritual practice. So it's like get with the flow of life or suchness. We got to quiet our mind sometime because our mind is always going for what we like or dislike, trying to avoid what we dislike. So Katagiri, he was a Japanese Zen monk up in Minneapolis, and he was there when I was going through this, separation and divorce. And he was just there. He didn't have any pious platitudes or anything, or, he says, basically, he says, sit down, like, sit down. What is sit down? It's like, get with what is. Be a dad and be there, and be, this is where it's at, for your spouse and yourself. So it's like, be there without, resentment or, or depressing or, all the antics we do when we lose things, kind of thing. So Katagiri talks about that as like being in the middle of the river. And what is the river? The river he's talking about is the river of life. How many years do you have? How many years do I have? We're not getting any younger, right? But my favorite saying is Yogi Berra says, the game's not over until it's over. So I'm hoping I have a few more years. But the issue here, he says, is get with the river of life. Let me just read. And he calls that living in vow. I have to say one thing about this living in vow. Living in vow means be with what is, beyond your like or dislikes. We all have likes and dislikes. You shouldn't just kind of, I'm not going to have any likes or any dislikes. We're not talking about, that was the Buddha's first way. It was, I'll just be a totally purist, about everything, But living in vow is embrace this day. Be with this day, beyond like or dislike. We try to go for what we like, but this day will unfold itself, however it's going to unfold itself. If it's a beautiful day, we'll want the same tomorrow. And yeah, it's supposed to be a nice day tomorrow, and Tuesday, and Wednesday, and Thursday, but then the rain comes again, we don't like the rain, but anyway, so living in vow is embrace this day. There's a little gata for waking up. Waking up this morning, I vow with all beings to realize everything without exception, embracing the 10 directions. So to realize everything without exception is take care of what's coming down. Take care of what's under your foot. And embracing the 10 directions means it comes at you from the back, from the side, from the bottom, from the top. Things happen. So that is a kind of a vow to kind of stay with what is. Doesn't mean we have to like it, but to be there really takes strength or fortitude or groundedness in yourself. Without that, you're just really tossed, back and forth or wherever. And we all get tossed. So he says, living in vow is like taking a trip down the Mississippi River. There was a barge coming up the center of the river when I crossed the bridge. Not that, I'm going to read this. Anyway, so he says, living in vow is like taking a trip down the Mississippi River. If you go to the center of the river, there is no need for any extra effort. If you go to the center of your life, the river of your life will carry you. If you practice in this way, you will find a natural rhythm in your life. Start with taking care of the little things in your life on an everyday basis. And eventually, you will get to the middle of the river. And then he winds up, he says, if you learn to take a long-range view of life, you will continue to practice routinely and you will get to the middle of the river. Then, without any extra effort, your body and mind will move along in peace and harmony. A sense of gentleness, generosity, and magnanimity will come forth from each pore of your body. Your vow will have become your life. So that is, I think, Buddhist practice or Buddhist perspective of God is all of that. We're joining with God. We're in disharmony with God when we're not, there, and we all get tossed. But, redemption is to bring yourself back to this moment. That's my best shot. So thank you.